It's easy to identify who the drippiest pirate on One Piece's seas is. Of course, it's Don Quixote Doflamingo. But if you had to nail down what his, take on political philosophy is, what would you say? I mean, for me, after learning his backstory and the way he ruthlessly deploys manipulation, it became pretty clear to me that Doflamingo isn't the heavenly demon. He's the prince. And of course, I'm talking Machiavelli because Doflamingo actually serves as a textbook example of the Machiavellian mindset. Because throughout his entire time on screen, Doflamingo is constantly proving his belief that the ends justify the means. Even though those ends are horrific domination and a wardrobe that even the menswear guy on Twitter wouldn't knock. But of course, when I'm talking Machiavellian, that word comes from Niccolo Machiavelli, a 16th century diplomat, historian, and political philosopher from Renaissance Italy. His writings focus on political power and strategy, and by far and away, his most famous work is the book The Prince. The Prince explores the nature of power, and I swear to God, I've read this book 15 times throughout my educational career. And to summarize it in a sentence, which you should never do, the prince basically says that rulers should be prepared to act immorally if it means securing their position or whatever their end goal is. And this book had a seismic impact on political theory and philosophy. And in a lot of ways, it became synonymous with this idea that the ends justify the means. And yeah, Doflamingo may have been a little bit more cruel or crazy than Machiavelli would have endorsed. I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I can't speak for the man, but their approaches to leadership bear such a resemblance to each other that at the end of the day, this is the philosophy that Doflamingo definitely would have endorsed if he was a real person. If Doflamingo was in your intro to philosophy class when the teacher started doling out the prince, he would have been the kid who adopted this as his new personality. Total red flag, total walking red flag. He's hot, but red flag. And as we dig into it, a lot of Machiavelli's philosophy might seem outdated, and not just because of the medium in which we understand it. I honestly believe that if Machiavelli had a little YouTube channel today and he had a video that was I backstabbed my way to the throne, that shit would do numbers. That would do numbers. You can have that, Mr. Beast. That one's for free. But not only are books not cool anymore, but this is from 400 years ago. Over 400 years ago, I think. And so, like Machiavelli, Doflamingo's approach to ruling was just a little bit on a touch. But if we want to understand the driving philosophy that made Don Quixote Doflamingo who he was, we need to understand Niccolo Machiavelli. So we're going to take a look at 5 key principles of Machiavelli's philosophy and how they shed some light on Doflamingo's dark, twisted mind. Up first, we have Virtu Fortuna, and even though these might seem like Italian for virtue and fortune, those aren't direct translations. Virtue is the characteristics that all leaders need to have in order to rule effectively, and Fortuna is basically the goddess of fortune, who Machiavelli actually saw as a destructive river responsible for human misery. He thought it was a force of nature, and he really pressed that only leaders who practice Machiavellian virtue can have any hope of resisting her. It's some really good marketing to plug yourself as the only answer to a natural force. Good job, Niccolo. And when you take a step back, the entirety of Dressrosa is actually a battle between Doflamingo's Virtu and Law and Luffy's Fortuna. We saw Doflamingo's skills in manipulating people and the circumstances around them as he continued to raise the stakes of the arc as his hand changed. From the beginning, where he set up the battle royale in the Colosseum for the flame fruit, to the end where he set up a battle royale throughout kind of the entire island just to kill the Straw Hats, he really tried to turn every single situation to his advantage. And obviously it didn't always work for him. It didn't always end up in his favor, but he was constantly using his skills and his attributes to try and turn the tide of fate into his favor. And it exemplifies something that Machiavelli himself had said, which is fortune is the arbiter of half the things we do, leaving the other half or so to be controlled by ourselves. We saw that Doflamingo doesn't just play the cards that he's dealt. He tries to stack the deck, look at your cards over your shoulder, and if it's not in his favor, he's just gonna burn the table to the ground. And the next principle is that the ends justify the means. And this is a well-known classic and one that I've already used a few times in this video. And we know this one. This is that actions that achieve a certain outcome are allowed, even if they're maybe a little bit immoral. And if you've watched One Piece, and specifically Dressrosa, if you haven't, why are you still watching this? You should go watch One Piece and then come back and watch this. It's gonna be way better. But if you have watched it, you know that Doflamingo's ruthless actions exemplify this principle that no matter how bad it is what you're doing, as long as it accomplishes your goal, it's chill. I mean, what he did to Riku and all of Dressrosa is truly psychopathic behavior. And the game he has the entirety of the country play in the birdcage shows he's willing to kill anyone, including his friends and his family, to win. Because to Doflamingo, the means can range from a polite little conversation to a full-on puppet massacre. And he's willing to use either of those and everything in between to achieve his goals. The next principle is the fox and the lion, and it's lesser known but really easy to understand nonetheless. Machiavelli advised that leaders need to be both cunning like the fox and strong like the lion. These are two of the qualities that Machiavelli says are absolutely crucial for a good leader, and Doflamingo has both cunning and strength in spades. He's a master of deceit, and he's a formidable opponent for anyone. What Machiavelli wrote was that a prince must imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. It's not just these qualities, but the balance between them, and Doflamingo perfectly uses this in the way that he interacts with conflict. He's pretty much strong enough to kill anyone that Luffy had fought up until this point, and he's smart enough to make himself invaluable to Kaido, who he knew could absolutely kill him. Like, realistically, Luffy and Law had no business taking down Doflamingo's operation. But it was because together they were stronger than Doflamingo. Law was the fox and Luffy was the lion. And the combination of those two severely outclassed the fox and the lion inside Doflamingo. The fourth is the relationship between love and fear. And even though this is something that's well known, I'm not sure it's always attributed to Machiavelli. What Machiavelli said is that it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. And boy, oh boy, does Doflamingo's arc during Dressrosa show this outright. We learn that the plan for how he took over this country involved sabotage that endeared himself as like the savior of Dressrosa. And when our crew arrived at the kingdom, Doflamingo was pretty well loved. But as the facade started to fall and our crew started to unravel the lies of the toys and the Tantata and the past, Doflamingo was real quick to switch the flip from love to fear. And it kind of showed that Doflamingo prefers to be feared rather than loved. Or at least, like, he didn't mind at all. Because he was willing to deploy the birdcage, which is a truly horrific power, just to maintain order and keep his subjects in line. And last is deception and manipulation, or the backbone of Doflamingo's reign. Machiavelli taught that leaders must be adept at deceit to maintain power, which obviously aligns with Doflamingo because deceit was his claim to the throne. And I know his backstory, like his family may have the claim to the throne from the Void Century, like his family was the king, yada yada yada. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Because the lie that he told when he deposed King Riku is the cornerstone of like his position of power. In One Piece, I'd say that Doflamingo's skills at manipulation and deceit are unmatched. He uses lies and manipulation to control his family, his subordinates, and his enemies, and he never gave it a second thought. Ever. Because to him, it was his right to gain power however necessary. You know, the ends justify the means and all that. And as Machiavelli wrote, a prince never lacks legitimate reason to break his promise. And that right there is the fundamental tie between Machiavelli's The Prince and Doflamingo. Doflamingo is the prince, or really the celestial dragon. He was born into unimaginable luxury and this belief that he was better than people. But his fall from grace had a transformative impact on him. This sense of entitlement evolved into a sense of or a desire for power and control. And because of the way he was born and this belief that he was better than everyone, that desire very quickly became vicious, especially with the help of Treble, the most disgusting, anime or manga character of all time, no question. Honestly, with him, it's everything. It's not just one thing. It's his voice, it's his personality, it's his disgusting power. He's so annoying. The least controversial thing of all time, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Fuck that guy. I hate that guy. All my homies hate Treble. But I do have to admit that under Treble's mentorship, Doflamingo's ambition really took off. And the combination of that influence and Doflamingo's entitlement, and as well as like his thirst for control, made Doflamingo the One Piece embodiment of Machiavelli's political theory. Like I said before, from Doflamingo's manipulative strategies to his ruthless pursuit of power, he really embodies the Machiavellian mindset. In all of these key points in Machiavellian principles that we looked at in Doflamingo, we saw that he embodies the core tenets of the prince in the way that he plays the game of power. And in that game of power, Doflamingo shows us that the most dangerous players are those who understand that the game never ends. It just keeps evolving. Thanks so much for tuning back in, Robot Heads. I hope you enjoyed this. I really like this video. I like the script. I like the premise for this, and I think it's going to be the beginning of like a little series I'm going to do. Kind of just detailing main characters in One Piece and probably other anime and manga, and kind of what political, or not political, but like what philosophy they might embody. Sometimes it might be political like this. A lot of the other ones are not. They're just either personal identity philosophy or general like life philosophies, ranging from ancient philosophy to modern times. I just also wanted to say thanks so much for everybody who's kind of come back. I know I took like a month's not a crazy amount of time to take off, but I did it, and had to kind of deal with just some real life responsibilities. So I appreciate y'all. I really do. I love every single one of you more than the last. So try to be the last one in there. You get the most love from me. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I know I've talked about things like Discord. I just like these rambling at the end, so I'm just fucking going for it. But I know I've talked about some few things in here. We'll see. We'll get there. Please comment, reach out, communicate with me. I really do this because I don't have a lot of outlets in my real life for talking about anime and manga, and I love it, and I have like a lot of thoughts up in my little cranium of mine about this stuff and about my favorite series, and so I need to get it out there. So everybody who comments, even the people that say mean things or disagree with me, just to have that interaction means the world to me. So I've got a million video ideas that some of you know that I'm constantly churning out ideas and writing scripts. So there's gonna be a lot coming your way. Really appreciate you all, and let's get back on the Robo Gang shit. Let's get some robots in the chat. Can we get some like some variations on it? Can we get some happy robots? Can we get some angry robots? Like, tell me how you're feeling in robot form today, my kings. I mean, we're gonna be here from noon on one way or the other. We might as well express it. So that's it. Thanks so much. Chin chin to all y'all back there at home. Love you guys. And I don't know how to say goodbye.